Ladies and gentlemen, I am your host for another edition of the ComicCorp Podcast, brought to you by RealNerdCorp.com, RealNerdCorp.com, as well as Twitch.tv/Comic and GameCorp. Joining me as always is Marcus Green. Marcus, how are you?
Good, man. Glad to be back. Weekend is upon us. Those birds of predatory nature upon us, I guess.
Ironically enough, I was just watching someone talking about the birds of prey. And the one thing that was kind of alluded to was that there's some concern that it's going to flop.
Hmm.
Yeah, so we'll have to see how the gal pal rom-com that is Birds of Prey and the fantabulous
Yeah.
emancipation of Harley Quinn gagged me with a goddamn spoon.
Yeah, that by the time we both seen that should be a fun review. Speaking of both of us, shout out to Zach who go to your tweet has the plague. Get better, man.
He does have the plague. It's the mononucleosis plague. They call that the pink plague. I was going to be very insensitive and be like, oh, Zach's got the coronavirus, have 2 coronas on us. But then I was like, wait, no. We'll just stick with the I have the plague joke. Because it doesn't matter if it's a cold, the flu, shingles, chickenpox, food poisoning, Lyme disease. It's always just the plague. We have the bubonic plague. We're going to die late. One of these days, one of us might actually get the plague, and then that's going to just be like an awkward thing. Like, yeah, someone actually got the bubonic plague. How did that happen? I don't know. I guess we willed it into existence. So we're covering issues 4 through 10. Just finished it at 9 o'clock. Like I got through the last issue at 9. So here we are. 2 arcs. Well, what was it? Cherry and I forget what the other one's called. I sent it to you. I don't remember.
Yeah, pull that up. Cherry and Get Some and Cherry.
Get Some and Cherry. So Get Some essentially was the first kind of like a call to arms to kind of give you an idea what the boys and their whole kind of thing is going to be about. You know, it's a nice kind of introduction to all the fluff, or not fluff, but the viable information around the situation. And then Cherry was just, I don't know, Garth Ennis implying that all comic book fans and superheroes are closeted gay dudes.
Yeah, there's a lot of suckage.
Lot of stuff going on there. So let's start with Get Some. In issue number 4, we get the revelation of what basically makes, or it is either 4 or 5. It makes the superheroes. It's the blue stuff, Compound V, which is what we found out about during the series. In fact, the series kind of played it more up as as kind of a like a drug that they use to get faster, while also using it. Like, it was put into their DNA when they were kids, but they also still take it now as adults to amplify their skills even more so. And in the comics, it's kind of, it's implied that all this stuff is the same way too, but it also doesn't have the same kind of chemical issues with normal people when taken in small doses. Basically,
Yeah, it's not its purest form, I think he said.
Yeah. Basically, Butcher puts some into Huey, and he's like, yeah, in small doses, it'll last for a few days, and like the only side effect is you're going to be excrementing blue. The best way to put it. So, in the show, though, it's shown to have psychedelic and narcotic side effects. Like with A-Train, he looked like he was on cocaine. when he ran through Huey's girlfriend. He was, sweating. He was stammering. He had a loss of focus. He didn't know where he was. But that doesn't seem to be the same type of situation in the comics. I don't know if we're going to see that eventually get brought in or what. But, for what it is, it is. So, thoughts about how they introduced the Compound Blue in the first arc of the night?
It's interesting because in this, obviously, there's still room for this to be brought into the other side of the series in terms of the boys actually engaging with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's more compelling to watch it in a serialized form that they're not using it in there. It puts the writers in a creative position because now they have to be able to take these a-holes down without it. Because in the obviously, as you know, in the show, it's not what everybody thinks it is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not even that. People don't even know about it. What am I talking about? People don't even know about it. It's kind of like that joke that Butcher told in the comic where he was like, "Oh, I fell into a radioactive vat, or some spaceman gave me some superpowers or something." But all the heroes that they've come to know on the show are basically made. So it's definitely intriguing because also it got used as a in the context of, because I'm reading the book and I'm like, wait a minute. And I caught on to this far quicker than I probably should have, but I was proud of myself. I'm like, wait a minute, are they playing speed fucking? Then yeah, and then get told that not only are these teenage kicks using it to as a basically a Red Bull and Viagra, but the women are using it to basically numb themselves from getting super pounded. So, yeah.
Butcher said something to the effect like, "What else are you going to do when a man who can run faster than a cheetah pounces on you?" Essentially, and I'm just like, that's valid. That's valid.
And then the panel of a certain person experiencing the quote unquote after effects of being quote unquote pounded, what they showed is like, oh.
Without worrying about copyright struck, let's just say that a woman was using the lavatory after her session and pulled up a handful of crimson, if you will. It had to be a rough day for her. So this issue also explored, as Marcus has, I don't want to say alluded, outright stated, is more accurate, the fact that basically every superhero team is debaucherous to a certain degree. And at the end of the issue that we just read to end the arc, I think it was issue 10 or issue 9 for Cherry, MM says, "You ever think that there might be a few people out there doing this for genuine reasons?" And Butcher just said, "Probably, but fuck them." So you see the debauchery going on, and you have to ask yourself who really is an innocent. But Huey does end up meeting one. I want to say it was in the second issue of Get Some, issue 5, where Huey finally meets what's her name from the 7?
Yeah, Starlight.
Starlight. He meets Starlight from the 7. Starlight has already alluded to having to do some side jobs, if you will, to get into the 7. Something that even A-Train alluded to during his encounter with her during the first formal meeting.
Stop the A-Train.
No, you cannot. The thing that was really interesting was the stand-ins for Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman are alluded to the big 3. That was interesting. And then Homelander basically tells A-Train, if you ever bitch about money again in front of, or if you ever pull that shit again with that slurping shit in front of the money again, we're going to have issues. So Homelander really does not give a fuck about anything but his money.
Yeah, and he also is mature enough to, I mean, by the way, I think it's even better for somebody like me watching the show first and then coming back and then seeing how they did it in the comic as opposed to the show. because you see where they did it better, and then you see where they kind of pulled back, which we talked about the week before last. Um, but yeah, Homeland is kind of this dude. He can also compartmentalize properly, so what happened when it happened, and it don't
Mm-hmm.
need to be brought up again. And yeah, it's just weird because when you get that side job scene, if you will, um, the way the guy plays it in the show, you would think that would be something that they could have did with him, but he's not the one that they did it with.
Yeah, in the show, the quote
Yeah.
unquote side job, her extracurriculars were with the Deep, and it was more of a forced not non-forceful unconsented kind of encounter. I don't remember seeing I've read I've jumped around on this book, so like I've seen the panel where it happens. I just don't remember seeing it today. The panel
Yeah.
where it happens with Starlight is more of a, shall we say, group experience.
Yeah.
So very different from how it was portrayed. Like in the comics, it was very much done like this was an initiation that she voluntarily did. In the show, is more of a coerced experience. So they are changing things from the book. And honestly, I, I I'm very much the guy who's like source material but also like I think the show is better than the comic. And the
Yeah.
comic has been impressive so far. Like I've been morbidly interested in this, but
Yeah.
the reason why I think the show is better is because it's not as in your face. It builds to things better.
Yeah.
Like with the whole sex party in issue 4. All right, like it's very R-rated. That's cool. But imagine having scenes like that all the time, and then you get like that plane sequence.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because oftentimes you'll see shows like do a lot of corny implied stuff, like we get on the CW. Um, but with the boys, they go there, but it's enough to get the point across without being overblown. No pun intended. Because it's like the scene with Starlight, they didn't need to make it a group experience. That the way that went down was enough.
Yeah.
And in the way that they did it in the show, she was clearly getting ready to take his head off, and he was like, you want them to find out that you were behind all, like the way that they did it was smart. And even the way that they did certain some like a sex party, like just the visual of that guy going miniature and then literally just diving in.
That's
It's
still my favorite
they
part.
they do the perfect R-rated version of less is more.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a hard line to juggle because you have a lot of people who would just be like, no, we could do that origin scene because you could just pull some actors who just trying to get a sad card to do that kind of stuff. But yeah, they
Marcus is about to fucking casting couch this shit. So you want your SAG card?
oh freaking one of the kicks, but but yeah, I mean it's like I said, and we're gonna get to it, but they do stuff in a way where it hits more, like the conversation between um I think it relatively kind of felt the same like when Huey and Starlight met at the bench and how their stories kind of paralleled each other, both on a precipice of doing things that they wouldn't normally do because of the circumstances they were put in. They kind of felt like they didn't have a choice,
Mm-hmm.
and then but clearly I think, and like I said, we're about to get to this. They clearly did so much better about the reveal about Butcher's motivations.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah,
So in issue 2, we start to realize some of Butcher's plan. They've bugged all of the Kix's hideout. Huey's been injected with the compound. V compound. Yeah, that's right. And I think it was this issue where they realized that that the kid Kicks or the teenage Kicks have been found out, and all of
yeah,
their dirty, dastardly deeds have been sent to them. Like, hey, this is what we know. So they're like, all right, one of us needs to be sacrificed on the altar. Who's it gonna be? And they pick the black guy. So we get to see the comic version of Popclaw, and then a bunch of other characters that we haven't seen yet, or probably will ever see. And it was kind of surmised that the reason why it was like Shout Out, I think his name was because he was the only one that didn't have any protections within the community. Like Popclaw was the only chick. They had a dude who literally had Judge Dredd's helmets, but he was kind of more of a Punisher anagram. So I thought that was, is anagram even the right word? Stand-in. He was a Punisher stand-in, but they kind of just surmise like, hey, so and so can't be out because he's got ties to this, and they're not gonna throw Popclaw under there. They're not gonna throw the Judge Dredd character under there because he's got the NRA vote. So the only one that's left without any protections is Shout Out. That's why he got sacrificed. Basically, that got back to Homelander, who's like, tell the dumbass kids that we know who did this. So the kids find out that it was Butcher. The kids show up, and in the end of the second issue, there's about to be a throwdown. And then in the third issue, Huey outright murders, what was his name? Can we even say it? It was like,
I forgot, cock something.
Yeah, it was like cock block or slock block clock or something like that. And Huey just fucking rips him in two because he doesn't know how to control himself on the Compound V. So that's where he kind of goes off and basically hides away where he meets Starlight. And Starlight, she's kind of dealing with the fact that, the Seven's kind of a bunch of dickbags. So they have the little moment. I thought it transferred well. I actually really think that the comic and the TV scene were really well broached between one another. I felt like they were both equally good. I thought that the vibe from both kind of had a nice transference. The only thing I'll say about the TV side of things is that, it has the extra kind of onus of Starlight having to deal with more of a trauma as alluded to being more shameful. And I think that was a better way to go with it because it added another layer to the situation. While with the comic version, it's just debaucherous to be debaucherous, while in the TV version, it's, truly I don't want to say a timely thing because this kind of thing has been going on for decades. But it has an authentic vibe to it. It feels more real than what we got in the comic. But I still think both were pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, same, and they even in the show it's more nuanced and to a more elevated level because it's also backdrop by her how much she takes her religion serious.
Mm-hmm.
So and that whole thing about because she was a virgin-ish, I guess.
Virgin adjacent.
Yeah, virgin adjacent. So bringing that into account, then. Like I said, there's so much more depth in the show with her because just the whole family drama with her was heartbreaking, but it was well to do. So like I said, it's funny because it almost would have been like a lesser show if they would have just ripped everything from the book. But they took time to do more nuanced things that, like you said, are more timely with the Me Too stuff and obviously bringing religion into it and even more really than that, just the whole commercializing everything, like basically turning them into the Avengers in a way, with the whole greed behind everything. So, which they also brought up at a meeting, which was funny, because the Deep looks like he's going on a dive expedition with the little helmet thing open, asking about the percentage of merchandise he's not getting.
He's got that Navy diver suit from what's that Cuba Gooding Jr. movie?
Shoot, what's the name of that damn movie?
Robert De Niro just called him Cookie the entire time. Goddamn. That was a good movie.
Yeah.
Marcus is hastily typing away to see if he can find it. It's Robert De Niro, Shirley Theron.
Men of Honor?
Men of Honor. Yeah, that's right. That sounds about right. And that one Boston sports fan who's on like all these shows, just pale as fuck. Oh, what a cast. We then move into. Well, I guess that's the end of the first arc, actually. Huey has to come to terms with the death of a Teen X member or whatever the fuck they're called. They do a quote-unquote funeral for the masses, and Huey is unsure originally if he can handle it, and then it becomes one of those things where he comes back to the group and he's like, all right, let's do this shit. So, thoughts on the first block, which is Get Some.
Yeah, man. I mean, like I said, it was cool. Like I said, seeing the back and forth stuff. His how they use that whole part for comedy, listening in on the Knicks basically find out about blackmail. Um, the stuff between him, which is not in the show, um, because it actually take away from Carl Urban's performance and how he feels about what happened if they did this. But his interaction with screwing the agent woman.
Yeah, that seems to be a penchant that keeps popping up.
Yeah, and it's even funny because obviously when one of the scenes now the dog is watching is basically he's getting a tutorial. in one of the scenes he was like, is Tara gonna what F you? No, not if I don't tell him to.
Watch or I should say, reading that scene play out with Tara
Yeah.
kind of having that little box next to the shall we say session with his big ass smiling face and like I was like, oh no, oh no. I was scared, Marcus.
Oh, good. But yeah, like I said, I think the only drawback for me was how, I guess, unimpactful and kind of just whimsically, I guess that the whole thing came out about Butcher's motivations, and how they kind of did that part of the story because it kind of like thinking about it, like I'm glad they took it to a more visceral sense. Well, the way he explained it was visually visual, but it hit harder emotionally in the show. So, but he kind of just brought that up in conversation, like, oh yeah, I mean, look, man, this such and such happened, and dude was like, what? Yeah, 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 I loved it, but that happened. So I think that was probably my only drawback. But everything else I thought was cool. Maeve is not as much of a presence as I thought she'd be. I guess some people may say that about the show, but I assume they kind of waiting to kind of do some more stuff with her.
With the CIA chick?
No, Maeve, Queen Maeve, the Wonder Woman.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah,
Jace.
yeah. There's a lot I already know about her character, and I don't know how much in between it's going to ramp up, but I would say she's getting far more play for her presentation in the show than she is in the comic. Queen Maeve definitely has more of a impact right now. Like if you're looking at the first couple arcs of the show, first couple arcs of the comics, she's definitely far more pronounced in the show than she is in the comics. So I'm curious to see where they go with that. So the next arc ends up being Cherry. Not really sure what the point of this arc was.
Yeah.
This is Garth Ennis writing stuff after he does so much cocaine. I don't know if Garth Ennis actually does cocaine, but it would answer a lot of questions. So the boys are investigating essentially a murder. A young man is dead, and they want to find out who done it. Why? I don't know. I was skipping portion of this cast trying to make sure we made it on time. But the general consensus was that there's a mystery afoot, and they're going to solve it like the Scooby-Doo gang. But most of the gang is going to sit this one out because apparently it's just going to be Huey and Butcher. So they go to a comic shop full of all sorts of comic booky, awful, terrible people, and there was a line that really got me. I think it was basically Butcher saying comics will rot your brains, and I'm just thinking to myself, Jesus Christ, Garth Ennis, you really hate your own fans, don't you? Ennis, whatever. So it's that. They end up having to meet this little old hobbit dude who's getting blown by some 50-year-old crack whore, and they're looking for information. It's all about this guy named Tech Knight. Well, at least that's what they're building to. The issue 7 was kind of of a book, but issue 8 is where shit really goes to 11. Oh, issue 8. What the fuck? So we know that what's his name? The ninja guy in the 7. What's his fucking
name? Frenchie?
No. He's the
ninja. Oh, Black is one of the big 3.
Yeah.
Noir.
Black Noir. He's the anagram, the analog. That's the word I'm thinking of. The analog for Batman. This dude is the analog for Iron Man.
Yeah.
So Tech Knight, he's got a real condition. You see, when you have a tumor pressing against the front portion of your brain, your impulse control goes out the window and you start doing dumb things. There's actually an episode of Law & Order SVU that tackled the same thing. And apparently this gentleman has the same issue, and he can't stop shagging all sorts of things. He goes to see a therapist to try to work this out and admitted that he, in midair, took the rear end of a Cybertronic mind-reading teammate of his. He got suspended for that, obviously. He then goes to see this therapist, and when the therapist leaves to get him coffee, he tries to do the same thing to a cat. I don't know what's broken in your head to try that, but here we are. Later in the issue, we found out that he's done it to his butler in his ear because this book has no goddamn boundaries. We then find out that he's got a little 14-year-old sidekick.
Ladio.
And Ladio is the second Ladio that we know of. And he's about to get, shall we say, rump roasted. But Tech Knight has a moment of clarity and sends Ladio on his way to basically do a excursion with all the other super teams. Ladio says that could take years, and Tech Knight says, good. Experience everything. So little Ladio ends up surviving the encounter. But Tech Knight, breaks the hell down. All the while, Huey and Butcher are heading to a gay bar. And Huey basically has been calling out Butcher on his shit, but then when it comes time to go to a gay bar, Huey's like, I don't want to do that. And Butcher's like, wait, you've been calling me on my shit, now you won't actually go in one? Fucking hypocrite. So they go in there and they meet this couple. It's a young man working behind the bar and his older boyfriend. Apparently the older boyfriend noticed that an attractive man was flirting with his bartender boyfriend. So he basically tries to set people up. He said it wasn't intended to be nefarious, but essentially the young man who ends up dying was, I think the young man who was dying was the one flirting with the bartender. Am I right on that one?
Yeah.
So he tries to set him up with someone else. That doesn't go over well. Because that kid ends up dying, and this is the whole reason why we're having this conversation with the bartenders, with Huey and Butcher. Essentially, though, the boys go and confront Tech Knight because they believe Tech Knight had something to do with the boy's death. So they have a conversation with Tech Knight, and Tech Knight essentially reveals, well, he doesn't reveal anything in issue 9, but the boys, they out him on everything. They're like, "Oh, you're Tech Knight." He's like, "I'm not Tech Knight." He goes, "This is Tech Knight's hideout." No, it's not Tech Knight's hideout. It's Tech Knight's gear. No, I'm not Tech Knight. This is Tech Knight stuff. You're Tech Knight. All right, fine, I'm fucking Tech Knight. So it's revealed that Tech Knight and the original Ladio, which, why is that a name? Ladio. Like, Tech Knight's a cool fucking name, and Tech Knight looks cool as hell. But what the fuck is Ladio? So
sounds like a rape prep name.
Right. So Ladio and Tech Knight are also kind of an analog of Batman and Robin, because they're chasing, I don't think it was Popclaw, but they were chasing this long-nailed woman who's also like kind of like an anti-hero supervillain kind of person. She's supposed to be like a Catwoman character. And Ladio and Tech Knight essentially double team her. Sorry, that was crude. They Oreo double stuff her. There we go. That's much less offensive. And apparently, Ladio had a thing for Tech Knight, I guess, is kind of the insinuation. So that was kind of like this off-kilter thing for Tech Knight. They don't really, there's not really much given into what happened to the woman or what happened immediately after the events of the three-way, but it's heavily implied that something else happened, and we don't know what.
So weird, because he kept the suit on.
Yeah, he kept. They were still mostly geared. It was it was weird.
Yeah, these back half issues got really, like you said, it kind of seemed like the dude was on freaking Compound V when he wrote it.
It would explain all the things. To be fair. So we then find out what really happened to this young man who ended up dying. Apparently, Ladio had a friend who was gay, and the friend ends up coming out to Ladio. Not the young Ladio who went off on this world-changing exploration, but the first Ladio, who's also going by the name of Swingwing, I think this is his name. And with a name like Swingwing, you have to assume that maybe he was swinging in more than one way. I'm just throwing it out there. It's a little too on the nose. So Swingwing, the adult Ladio, the Nightwing of it all. Get it, Swingwing, Nightwing. They find out that this young man who confessed his love to Swingwing, Swingwing didn't take well to it, and essentially threw him off the rooftop, killing the young man. And when Huey and Butcher asked him why he did it, he just said, as Swingwing, if I ever feel uncomfortable, I can just excuse myself and fly away. But, as me, I don't have that ability. So I freaked out and I chucked him off the roof. And everyone's like, that seems like an overreaction. And Huey, for whatever reason, does not take well to this explanation. And flat out botches Swingwing's face in with a solid right hook. Doesn't kill him, but he does hurt him. And they essentially, how did it end? They let him go, and I'm not sure why. But then the issue ends with some type of weird fuckery where Tech Knight saves a baby, or maybe it was supposed to be Swingwing sings a baby and a woman, and then Tech Knight goes into space to detonate himself to blow up an asteroid Armageddon style. And he ends up fucking it because Garthinos.
Because the hole he flew into looks
like a vagina.
So yeah.
It looks like a giant bear lips. But
which feel.
Yes.
No, go ahead.
No, go on.
No, I'll say it basically feels like a spin of what they did with Austin Powers, where it was the dick rocket.
Was that in the third one?
No, that was the first one, because remember him and Dr. Evil shot off in this thing to freeze himself.
That's right, with his cat, Mr. Bigglesworth.
Then Johnson, what is that? Well, sir, it looks like a bunch of pirates.
Wordplay. So he ends up blowing up the asteroid, and everyone heralds him a hero. But then all of a sudden, they cut back to Huey and Butcher, and Huey's telling Butcher, yeah, he apparently had a tumor pressing against the front part of his brain, and it made him all wonkadoodles. And Butcher alludes to, well, I guess that's why they dropped a wheelbarrow on his head. So I don't know if what the scene we got was supposed to be what really happened to Tech Knight. I'm assuming not. I don't know if we're going to see more about Tech Knight in issue 11, but the implication was that someone dropped a wheelbarrow on Tech Knight's head and killed him. So who knows? Who knows if that's the legitimate end of Tech Knight? Like, this is a dark, vaguely depressing series, and we're only getting there's still 50 issues left, 57 issues left.
Yeah, I'm just now thinking about it, about how people. It's weird the times we living in, because if people were really up to, most of the people really up to read the book, they realize that the show is quite light.
Yeah, this show is for all ages comparatively.
Yeah, because I'm so looking forward to getting the back half of. even though I'm waiting, I'm like, are they gonna give an explanation for if that house blew up? Did Homelander say that kid? He didn't say that kid, did he? No, it don't. Not that it matters. It was the chick's kid. Then again, like I said, this show is very small. We could find out something later, but yeah, it's so much lighter. Like it's so great. We don't have to look forward to seeing somebody literally boink an asteroid, busting off in space.
See, you say fortunately, and I say missed opportunity. Astrosexual.
Literally hashtag space nuts.
Gives you a new definition of blasting off.
Yeah.
So this is a wild ass book, and I hope Zach is reading along with us at home, because I really want to hear what his takeaways with this, possibly next week. It's crazy. It's legitimately wonkadoodles, and I'm in for it. I've read a lot of Preacher, so I know that this is just going to get worse. Because much like any type of horror film, the biggest and bloodiest moments come at the end. And that's exactly what's going to be happening with the boys, I assure you. What do you feel about the revelation that the boys use Compound V, making themselves essentially supervillains to fight the superheroes?
I mean, readily enough, it makes sense, and it was perfectly explained. Like, look, man, you, and it's so funny because, obviously in the show, he, Butcher is British, but in the book, Huey is Scottish, where he's American on the show. So just reading that dialogue back and forth of Bobby and Wanka and whatever, the Scottish names for stuff is funny. But yeah, it makes sense. Like I said, I just think in the series, it puts the writers in more of a creative space to come up with alternative methods. Because if they're using Compound V, we don't get that great scene with the I'm gonna call him the Invisicunt.
Translucent doesn't mean invisible, dumbass.
We don't get that scene. That was like a 3, maybe 4 minute scene, maybe less than that. But if they on Compound V, that's maybe a minute scene, if that. Specifically, if it's just Butcher. So, it has them come up with creative ways for them to get rid of. They took him out because he overestimated himself. A-Train basically took himself out of the fight because his time ran up on his heart. So, once we get down to things dealing with, I don't know how they could go after freaking Homelander, but that's going to be cool.
I know how they're going to do it. I don't want to tell you how they're going to do it because I don't want to spoil it, but it's not going to be anything you're thinking of.
Yeah.
Well, that's only... Okay, so what I'll tell you, and we'll get to it eventually, there's something to do with Black Noir. There's a reason why Black Noir was able to dispatch the woman so easily. At least alluded.
Gotcha.
If what we get in the comics is in the books, and I mean what we get in the comics is in the show, and what we get in the show is an allusion to the comics, there's a reason why Black Noir should have taken out the woman so easily. But you won't know that until we get to like the last 2 arcs of the comic. So if they go in that route, that's going to be how they handle Homelander in the show. But they could be completely changing it. Like Black Noir may be someone completely different in the show than what we get presented in the comic. But I feel like that'll be too big of a moment to not do, so I don't know.
It's also funny because now I'm coming up with all these ideas myself. Because like I said, they taking a lot of elements from the book, but putting their tweaks on them to make the show, like I said, more grounded and visceral, specifically when it comes to the emotional parts of it. So I'm thinking like, what if they do something? Because he also has a lot of gives me a lot of Snake Eye vibes.
Yes, I get that too.
And I'm like, what if something happens where they're able to take that guy down? Because I feel like he's holding stuff back we haven't even seen yet. And obviously because I haven't got to those issues yet. But like, what if somebody like they use Mother's Milk who may have a similar build to like just dress up as him and infiltrate one of those meetings or something? Because it's not like oh, Black Noir's being oddly quiet today. It's like that'll never come up. So that'll be interesting if they pull that.
Our mutes being awfully muted. It's going to be interesting to see how they pull it off. One of the things that I'm looking forward to is that big revelation in the show if they go that route. But, we already seen a major cataclysmic change because in the comic, Butcher says, my wife was raped and murdered. I don't know if he says murdered, but she may have killed herself, but was raped by Homelander. He hasn't named Homelander yet, but we're getting there. And
he basically said he woke up and she was left, I get basically super effed, and I'm guessing like he said like the baby was coming out of her, but it didn't make it or something. Like vaguely a similar take to what they did in the show, but on a just gruesome level.
Yeah, the show shows you how the comic went, essentially. But in the show, it's revealed that not only did she not get raped, she had consensual sex. Not only did the baby not kill her, she had the baby. And not only is she not dead, she's alive, and she has like a 7-year-old son. So we've already, that's a major point in the book that has already taken a shifty 180. So that's going to be something that I think, to keep in mind as we read this book. When we get to the big revelation of Homelander and Black Noir and how that all goes down, that might not be in the show.
Yeah.
And for me, I don't know if that's a good thing or not. But it could be. Could be a bad thing. I don't know. I'm on board for whatever the show gives me, so yes, please. I also find it ironic that we got this dude who looks just like Judge Dredd, and then in the show, Judge Dredd is playing goddamn Butcher.
Oh, the irony there. And the freaking Tech Knight looks like Turbo Man's cousin.
Yeah. No one likes you, Booster. Das a Dungeon Pranzoviction, Donna Blitzen. I fucked it up. Dasha Dunson Pranzoviction, Comic Cupid, Donna Blitzen. Yeah, I know all the reindeer. Give me the Turbo Man. No, you don't get a Turbo Man. You get a coupon for a Turbo Man. You could have a Booster. Ah, man, no one likes Booster. You know what this is? This is a bomb. Why would someone send a bomb in the mail? Man, there's some sick people in this world. Then he puts the bomb down and it ends up going off, and he looks back behind him after the bomb explodes. Man, there are some sick people in this world. I don't know what happened to Sinbad for him to fall off the face of the earth for 2 decades, but I'm glad he's making a bit of a comeback in the last few years because he's a fantastic comedian.
Yeah, he's hilarious. Just his interviews, how he sees things, and it's funny because every time I see him in a Breakfast Club interview or something, he keeps saying people keep thinking I'm dead.
I'm not always a big fan of stand-up comedy because like that's a very like you have to have like a personal kind of reaction to it. Like if you're a chick, you're gonna love Amy Schumer. If you're a black dude, probably not. If you don't have a dysfunctional psychotic family, you're not gonna enjoy Christopher Titus. If you do, you'll love it. But the one thing that I find with comedians is that they always translate well, at least just about, to comedic acting because it's about that comedic timing, and they know it. So when you have something like Sinbad, it doesn't matter what he's talking about. As long as you give him material that he can use, he will make it work. And I think that's one of the reasons why so many great comedians are just great actors. You know, you think about Robin Williams or, who was the other one I was just thinking of? Like Adam Sandler. Like when Adam Sandler actually tries to act, his stuff is really well received. And there's a reason for that. Comedians just understand the emotional aspect of connecting with an audience better than just traditional stage actors. So, Sinbad.
I mean, yeah.
No, that's
it's funny that you say that. It's funny that you say that because it's this weird thing that you have a lot of these actors, or a lot of times these what's the trade-off? They don't take the comedians seriously in the serious roles. But then, they get tired of them when they doing the funny stuff. It's like a comedian has to find the funny, and most people will never find the funny in anyway. Mm-hmm. So that takes an emotional awareness and depth awareness that a lot of people could be acting for. Thespians could be acting for years and never actually get. It's just a different trade-off. But for some reason, that crossover appeal never really comes up. Like, I guess we're still waiting for Kevin Hart to play a real serious role and be taken seriously or something like that. But we just got something great from Adam Sandler. And, I just like seeing that because, again, that's a whole nother talent pool to kick into. But for some reason, people don't want to let comedians out of that box. So
I don't know why that's the case, but it is. So we'll keep an eye out on that. Marcus, do you know what this week is?
No. What is it?
It's the return of the greatest sports league to ever don national television. The XFL. Are you going to watch the XFL this weekend?
No, I was gonna try to turn it into a Netflix weekend, but if we're gonna cover it on the show, I'll catch some highlights.
I don't know if we're gonna cover it. I just think it's fucking funny as hell. There are some players like Matt McGloin, Cardale Jones. I think it's Cardale Jones, former OSU quarterback, and Landry Jones. I think.
Yeah.
So they're going to be quarterbacks for a couple teams in the league. So I'm going to be keeping an eye out on the XFL just to see how they do because I'm a fan of all three of them. But like by and large, I'm not I'm not exactly over the moon with XFL. So I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. It's weird that this is like debuting now after what just happened on the WWE with the firing of the two executives. I would assume those were two people who would have replaced the old man should something would have happened. Or at least one of those people. But between that, not everything being where they wanted to be numbers-wise, the decline in both like I said, decline in live events, and like you said, that the network's cool, it's not great where they want it to be. So now that Vince's little side project is coming out, we'll see. Because it used to be the thing like, oh, NXT's losing money. Like, okay, now the conversation about to switch over to Vince's,
Football Fun League?
Yeah, Football Fun League, so we'll see. That's
what you should have called it, Vince, Football Fun League. Ironically enough, rumoredly, the WWE is going to be selling pay-per-view rights to other platforms. Allegedly.
Interesting.
So, remember how I've been telling you, screeching at you, Marcus, for like the better part of 3 years, the network is failing.
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean, no one wants to listen to the screamy dude. Well, apparently they're like, yeah, it's failing. The WWE has never made $1 off the network, and now apparently they're looking into selling off distribution rights to WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series, allegedly, to places like Amazon, ESPN Plus, probably DAZN. So remember all those, like, hey, we're gonna give you WrestleMania for $10. Those days are bye-bye. This will probably be the last year they do a $10 WrestleMania. And I'm gonna laugh so hard as the internet loses their shit. What? Suck it, nerds. So, Marcus, we also have word on Sony has a Master of the Universe. It's apparently destined for Netflix. With Master of the Universe's release up in the air, the film reboot may be heading to Netflix instead of theaters. According to Discussion Films, the film may forego a theatrical release as Sony has budget concerns over the reported $130 million project. According to rumblings of a budget concern started in October, as Sony seemed to have trouble trying to justify Master of the Universe costs against 2019's mixed returns. The studio pulling the project from its 2021 release date raised even more concerns over the film's fate. Netflix, meanwhile, seemed to be infatuated with the 1980s classic, as the streaming platform has two other projects on centered on Prince Adam. The film, helmed by Kevin Smith, will be a limited series sequel to the original with a still unannounced voice cast. The second will be a CG reimagined of the original with new adventures. What do you think about a He-Man movie for the Netflix?
There's mild intrigue, but I feel like, because I feel like I've seen the He-Man movie, and maybe it was so bad I think I blocked it out of my mind, or it's just been so long that I really vaguely remember it. But this may be one of those instances where we talked about before. Not everything is meant to come to live action,
Mm-hmm.
because I know also something that Kevin Smith's doing, um, for Netflix as well, if I'm not mistaken, and that's supposed to be, of course, an animated form. Which the last time I really enjoyed He-Man was, I think, the 2003 updated version that they did. Um, but it may be one of those things, because that's not really something you need to see in a low budget format. Um, so to me, I probably rely more on the animated thing. Um, but yeah, it's not a lot of intrigue, because I don't want that to be like the Dragon Ball evolution with the He-Man. It's like,
Yeah, no one wants to see that.
yeah.
Wasn't Chow Yun Fat in that?
Chow Young talking about the lead.
Yeah, wasn't he Roshi?
Oh yeah, he was Roshi. Yeah, that
How are you going to do
little
a
chill.
legend like that?
He'll do the turtle hermit like that, man.
Turtle Hermit. That actually brings up a nice segue. Apparently, the folks at Team 4-Star announced that they're not going to be doing a fourth season of their Dragon Ball Z Bridge series.
Um, I mean, I can't say I'm too mad. Like, I like those guys, like what they did, but to me, a lot of the greatness of Dragon Ball, specifically Z, kind of ended with the Cell stuff, and they ended on such a great note with that, like the way they did it. And of course, a bridge means we're gonna get through so much of the slog that was the Boo saga. But I don't know. It's maybe they looked at it like one of some of the films. Like, it wasn't. It's not really enough here for us to go through everything we went through, or it may just be they changing some stuff and they may be heading in a new direction. But those guys with that have probably, like with you have renewed people in loving the show in a different way, or brought people into the show. There's a lot of people who, ironically, may have only watched Dragon Ball in the abridged version, which is hilarious. But so that's an interesting choice for those guys to make.
I mean, did you read the announcement or no?
No, I'll just find it out.
Okay, so you literally pointed out what they said in the announcement. I'm paraphrasing. They said we do this as a labor of love, and we never wanted to make it feel like we were insulting or belittling the projects. When we did the Cell Saga, that was a labor of love because the Cell Saga was so good.
Yeah.
Then they go and say, but the Boo Saga. Like, everyone agrees the Boo Saga sucks. And it would go from a fan-made parody, please support the official release, to we're doing the best we can, fuck the noise. Because the Boo Saga was terrible. It was fucking 60 episodes, same goddamn plot line, Vegeta turns heel 6 times, they do 14 fusions, and then at the end of the day, Gohan sneezes a spirit bomb and somehow still wins. Oh, and then Boo's still alive at the end, and he's a little brown dude.
The whole narrative was anybody but Goku, and then
Goku
went through all the people, and it came back down to Goku. So
right?
It was like...
That's one of the things that I think will never be able to help. Dragon Ball, as great as it was, will never be more than what it used to be, because the idea of Goku always being the lol Goku wins character is so tiring that no one believes that it won't be him. Like, you think about a modern classic now, like with My Hero. We started off with the idea that All Might was Goku. Like, he was always going to be there. There was never going to be a thing where Goku, where All Might didn't do his thing, where he wasn't, all the things. But then he loses his abilities, and basically now it's Deku, and now Deku just went through and wrecked the big bad of season, what are we on, season 4? But Deku doesn't always deliver, because sometimes it's Fat Gum, and sometimes it's the cowboy gas mask guy.
Yeah.
Hiroshima, he steps in. Bakugo is constantly making things worse. But by and large, the show does a great job spreading it out. Like, there is no one driving individual who has to be the guy. There is not going to be a Krillin. There's not going to be a Yamcha. And I think that's what makes modern anime so much better than what it was in the late 80s, early 90s, is that they're not trying to sell one character, they're trying to sell the story. And it really did feel like with Dragon Ball Z, like they were just kind of like, oh, power levels, and Goku's doing all the good things, but it doesn't translate anymore.
Yeah, it got upset specifically because I watched all of Super as well. It just became about fights and power-ups and transformations.
And everyone's a bad guy, then everyone's a good guy.
Yeah. And all of a sudden Vegeta's keeping up with Goku, and they're just, on the level. So that whole deal, like they did one of the best passing of the torch stories, and then took the stick back. Took the torch back. And it's like, why did you let everybody was rooting for Gohan? You leveled them up. That again, it was anybody but Goku, and then again it came back down to Goku. So, and to me, to all the points you made, that's to me why My Hero has surpassed it, in my opinion, because it's not about just the one bandwagon character that's easy to get up on. Like, it was risky for them to take All Might out of that show the way that they did. I mean, he's still there, but not the shining beacon of hope that he was, because everybody loves that character. But like I said, it put the writers in the creative corner, if you will, to make everything and everybody else matter. In a lot of ways, because he was there, both the heroes and the villains was holding back, because like I said, the villains were never going to do as much as they could because All Might, and then the heroes like, well, even if we fail All Might to show up, that ain't the case now, and God knows where Endeavor is. We need him, so he got to step up. So these kids are having to level up, and for them to do Kirishima the way they did, Deku was constantly growing. It's not even about like the transformations or any of the like the epicness with the fights. It's about moments where like Deku saves their girl or freaking Lemillion, even without his powers gets the job done. Or just losing Night Eye. Like
Oh
that
God.
stuff means as much as when Gohan finally turned Super Saiyan 2, and then of course the great voiceover guy was like, "Now Cell faces a warrior, 11 years in the making," and that whole deal. But they do moments like that constantly throughout a season, and that's to me that's where they make themselves superior.
Dragon Ball Z is literally the WWE. You introduce Gohan, he goes Super Saiyan 2. You got Trunks, he's from the future in a Super Saiyan. You got Vegeta, he goes Super Saiyan 3, and you got the big ol' Sonic the Hedgehog hair. But at the end of the day, you still go back to Super Goku. Lol, Goku wins. No one wants to see that shit. Like, damn. God damn. So, was there even I kept looking, but I didn't see a new My Hero this week. Was there not a new My Hero this week?
Yeah, I think there was
The dub?
it was the exams for Todoroki and them. Not only Todoroki, Bakugo, and the wind guy and the girl that got, I guess, taken out of the competition by Togura. They was gonna be doing something with some kids or something. I think I gotta watch because I'm 100% on the Chad train. Like I'm gonna just wait on the rest of the dubs.
Right? Like, the dubs. I want to be the guy who always says, hey, to each their own. But
Yeah.
there are always going to be a few things that I just cannot intrinsically give up because they are part of my ever-loving foundation. If you put pineapple on pizza, I'm assuming you're a pineapple pizza file, and I'm not going to have you around my kids. like,
Pineapple pizza fire.
no. Like, that's a learned behavior, and it's gross. If you tell me that you're rooting for the Pittsburgh Steelers because Big Ben, I'm assuming that you have a defect, and I'm going to just keep you away from my kids. I don't have any kids, but I'm going to keep you away from them. If you tell me you prefer subs over dubs, well, I'm going to keep you away from my kids. Like, you fucked in the head, brother.
Subs over dubs, Ben Roethlisberger lovers, pizza pineapple philia.
It's truly a disease. Like if you put pineapple on pizza, like, I'm not saying you're worse than a pedophile. I'm just saying, like, you're in that echelon. Like, you're looking up at the back end of it. So, like, clearly there's still room for you to be worse, but, like, you're there. It's people who kick dogs. Well, actually, let's go in descending order. Is pedophile Nazis. Then we just had regular pedophiles. Because obviously Nazis are always the worst. It's people who kick dogs, and then people who put pineapple on pizza. Like, you are in Hitler tier. Suck the teeth. Like, there isn't there. No, you're done, fam. You're done. You don't put fruit on a goddamn pasta-based fucking delicacy. That's not pasta, but it's fucking wheat, flour, and dough. That's what pasta is flour, dough. God, fucking A. Just saying, like, so gross. Don't be doing that to my people. We already got to deal with goddamn Mario. Don't be doing us like that.
Oh man, I hope no unsuspecting beautiful young lady ever surprises you with a pizza with pineapple on it. Because I just see Chad having a Family Guy moment, telling her to come upstairs, and then she's go, "Where you go?" And then it's that moment when Peter gets knocked down. Oh God, God, no.
So here's how that would go. I'm imagining this on the 5th story of an apartment complex. Fly Honey comes in, because, I'm from 92. I'm perpetually stuck in 92. Fly Honey comes in. She got a pizza. She opens it, and she's like, I want you to take a bite out of my crust. I'm like, yeah, girl, I'm going to bite your crust. And then I see that there's pineapple on that. I just stand up off my couch, jump out the window. But like, I don't jump out the window. I kind of like jump out with my arms to the side. I just like fall like a rock, stiff like a board. Just. I may not die, I may die, but either way, I'm away from that goddamn atrocity you call food, you heathen. Speaking of heathens, so I read a rumor, I don't know how true this is, that Seth MacFarlane and NBC went to CBS to acquire the rights to Star Trek.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I don't know if it's true. It's from a Bounding into Comics post I saw. I don't think it's not true because CBS is having a rough go with it. They've been sued for copyright infringement and plagiarism for Star Trek Discovery. The guy who's running Picard and Discovery is the same guy who directed the 2018-2017 Mummy movie. Joy. And the series has taken a dramatic, and maybe abrasive departure from what the shows used to be visually and organically. So the idea of MacFarlane getting his hands on Star Trek actually really intrigues me. The funny thing is I write for that Star Trek Factory of Star Trek fan page. There's a lot of people who don't like the new stuff, and every time someone comes at me going, "Oh, it's another whiny baby not liking the new stuff," I've never actually said I like or dislike the new stuff. But these people are already so defensive that they go straight to that kind of argument. And I just imagine what would happen if Seth MacFarlane got his hands on Star Trek. Captain Stewie Griffin.
Well, for them, he's going to muck it up, Chad, because, the Orville's just a poor man's Star Trek, right?
If that's the poor man's Star Trek, I want to be poor.
Bring on the poverty.
Right? Like, beneath the poverty line, food stamps and financial aid. And here's the thing that's really going to piss people off. When the Orville comes back and season 3 is going to be on Hulu, we're going to cover it on this fucking website. It's going to happen, and people are just going to have to eat it. So, deal, nerds.
It's one of the best shows on TV, man. Like, it's not like... Just go back and listen to us talk about it. And then go back and watch the show if you still, like, non-believer. That show is that good. Once you get out of that zone of, oh, my God, the biting off Star Trek X stuff, and then, just watch the show for what it is, and I promise you'll fall for it. In some fashion. Like, some character or one of the storylines, like, it's brilliant. It's so underrated. It's hilarious.
There's a part of me that wishes the Orville didn't have the humor that it has because it's such a great, authentic Star Trek reimagining or what's the word I'm looking for? It's a salute to, it definitely does it justice in its, organic nature. It's not overly polished. It doesn't have all of these high-end, special effects budgets. It's very much made like Star Trek used to be made. But on the other hand, Bortus asking the entire senior crew to watch him urinate once a year is just, I don't know, that's hilarious.
What's the name of his people? Like, because this Bortus is whole...
I want to say like the Backlins, but the Mocklins. I was thinking of Bakugo and Mocklins.
Hilarious. Backlins, hilarious. But yeah, I mean, just to go from... episode centered around him having a mass piss ceremony to going into like the intricacies of a marriage where one the other half of the relationship is basically a racist bigot.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, and how they handle that is, I mean, you don't get it. And again, what's the most beautiful part about this show? They don't give you happy endings just for the sake of it. Like they make you sit with the decisions that these characters make and make you think about it from a different way.
There's a real authenticity with the Orville. One of the complaints about Star Trek Discovery and Picard is that there's no real ambiguity anymore in these series. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I don't want to be a guy who people talk, oh, well, you just don't like it, so that's why you're critical of it. I don't like it, but it's not because I don't think it should exist. There's elements of the original series that I find are missing in this, and I don't feel it's as authentically Star Trek. But then again, you have to realize that all those old series, Next Generation, Voyager, DS9, and Enterprise, were ran by two guys, one of which is dead, the other one is 75 years old. So obviously someone's going to take over the reins and do their own thing with it. I understand that. But Orville has captured that magic that the new Star Treks have lost. And the ones that, the Mocklin stuff is so good because they're tackling all of these big issues through the eyes of this race. Bortus and Clyden, who's played by Chad Coleman, who's fantastic. His kayfabe sister on The Walking Dead is Michael whatever on Star Trek Discovery. So that's pretty cool synergy right there.
That's great.
Right. So they've done same-sex romances because they're a race of mostly males. They've done transitioning of children who are born different, which isn't just a transgender kind of conversation. It's also a conversation that's going to lean into more modern day because there's always conversations now about being able to identify things within a baby and being able to change it at the point of conception so that you could have a super baby. So there's that argument. Then they tackled the idea of domestic violence and divorce when Clyden tried to kill Bortus, which is the Mocklin way of divorce. He tried to kill you, Bortus. It was our, it's a divorce. It's our custom.
Not to mention complete and then pretty sure I'm wording this, framing this wrong, gender bias and or just outright shaming because again, the Mocklins are the narrative is it's all males. Yeah, predominantly males. Yeah, so when they did a storyline about, because of their way that the entire half of their species has basically vacated themselves or secluded themselves in a completely different solar system or just a completely different planet, all completely off of the beaten path so they can survive.
Mm-hmm.
Just on the Mocklin storyline alone, it is, created so much depth in the show. That's not even talking about the stuff that they did with Ed and his issues with, being good enough to be captain. His best friends, that storyline about him just wanting somebody to love and that whole deal. The freaking love storyline they did was Slime. Did a love storyline about Doctor from Slime. This show is so much more than a Star Trek ripoff. It's weird. Just going through this stuff, I'm like, this show has tackled all this stuff and has done it well. None of this stuff has been tackled in a corny way or a way that's insulting to the women or gays. They even tackle that with the I forgot, was it the Mocklins they did that with, or was it the strong girls race of people that they did that with?
I want to say it was the Mocklins because it was Clyden who kills the guy. Yeah. Was it kill him or did he? No. Okay, so Clyden was going to.
Snitch.
Yeah, but the guy faked his own death, and then they found him out because, if I remember correctly, the guy ended up falling for, shall we say, Strong Girl Nation.
Yeah, Strong Girl Nation.
And because Mocklins are supposed to be same sex only, because there's only 4% women in their entire species. I think they even allude to the women don't have a biological function within their society. because the men breed.
Yep.
So I don't understand. Where does the egg come out? God damn it, Bortus. And then he sees someone giving birth. How is this better than laying an egg? Bortus repping, man. Bortus is repping. But so yeah, that entire episode where the Moclan ends up admitting that he has feelings for a woman, like what? That's punishable by death, man. And then you got Clyden fucking turning him in, and the worst part is like, there's so much there that's just a heavy burden, and I don't know how many times Bortus has pretty much said, you know, he is my partner, he is my mate. You know, I don't agree with him, but I will support him. Like when they did the transitioning of the child, and when he got turned in, like I think the turning in of the one guy, the Moclan who was into the chick, I think that was like the final straw for Bortus. I need to rewatch season 3 or season 2 because I don't remember if Bortus ended up leaving Clyden at the end of the season. I feel like
he didn't.
No, he didn't. Okay.
No, it was they just in this weird space of just, you know, he's really seeing it. They're not the same. It's a growing divide between the two of them, because I think the last straw was that great scene where I forget that he wouldn't acknowledge Kelly for some reason, and Bortus called him out on it.
Oh yeah. And Kelly tried to like, it's all right, and Bortus like, it's not fucking all right. Because the Moclans are a mix between Klingons and Vulcans, where they are both very emotionless but also very volatile. So there's that conflicting duality about them that I think makes them very fascinating. But you know, he got heated, and it's really it's a great fucking show. Like, I'm not a big potty humor guy, so like some of the jokes I'm like whatever, but the substance, like the substance, excuse me, I'm trying to fight back a burp. The substance of it is so damn good that it makes me, you know, that makes the parts of the show that I'm not a fan of just fly by because I'm so eager to get all the other stuff. But it's also beyond that. You know, the stuff with Kelly and God, what's McFarlane's name in that show? Ed.
Ed, yeah, Ed.
The stuff between Kelly and Ed is so great because he spends the first 2 seasons like, you know, we can make a run at this again. And she goes, we could, but think about where we are today. And how 2 years ago this wouldn't have been possible. And you want to risk it all just for a chance at a maybe? And like, that's a real feat. Like, there's not going to be like some big dramatic kiss underneath exploding, you know, light rays and you know, right before the big explode. No, like, that's a real conversation that people really have every day. And that's when science fiction, especially Star Trek, is at its best, is when it's tapping into those real conversations. Like, it's fantastic.
I mean, and not even just to bring up the what if, to show the what happens if the what if actually happened.
Yeah.
And why the whole, you know, it's better to look forward and not back situation. I mean, just the concept they've explored with Isaac, and in that episode, I mean, they've done such a great job with the Doctor. First off, her journey of choosing to be a single parent of 2. And
that's right. She
was
artificially inseminated, wasn't she?
Yeah, choosing to be a single parent of 2, what that looks like, the difficulties, and not only that, but also, you know, doing that and trying to build a relationship, you know, some semblance of a relationship, and then having what you would consider to be human feelings for a robot who is basically supposed to be the antithesis of human emotion.
Who's also a traitor.
Yeah, who would also be a traitor, and then through the process of this traitoring ends up being a retrader.
Hey, Mark, you can't say that. It's politically incorrect.
Retrader.
The term is anti-conformist, non-political realignment, soldier of misfortune. Come on.
I'm gonna be getting suspended for this one. But yeah, then turning on his own race because of these relationship dynamics that he's seemingly been denied, but secretly have been building this whole time with these kids. Like it's insane the levels of that they've given everybody, on the ship. I mean, they even tackled a porn obsession good.
Oh God, that's right. And it's Bortus again for the win. Dude, I forget the actor who plays Bortus, but he needs to basically just be like, I want to get paid because you literally can't do the show without me.
And the only person we know that can say that, and ironically enough, coming off of talking about Star Trek Discovery, is Doug Jones.
Yes, Doug Jones is fantastic, by the way. All the Doug Jones and all the things. It's so good. It's so good. So I'm just looking on Twitter and I'm seeing a Giannis thing, so I'm gonna click on it because I love me some Giannis.
Yeah, man, Seth MacFarlane making that. I mean, he's making some real bold moves, but I mean, he's kind of getting out of the I guess the brand perception that everybody's kind of had him into him just being the guy that could, the Family guy or whatever. Like there's so much more depth to that guy. A lot of people realize. I mean, just look what he did with Ted, right? So
yeah. I think the thing with Seth MacFarlane, and this is something that people are going to need to realize, the idea that he's just some dude who gets by with dumb jokes is a fallacy. You may not, and again, like this is not an argument about subjective versus objective. Seth MacFarlane is objectively extremely talented. You don't need to like him to admit that. I don't like LeBron James. I'll never say he's a bad player. He's really good. But Seth MacFarlane can sing, he can write, he can act, he can dance. He has comedic timing. He's literally a 5-tool player. But he also has an understanding of what Star Trek fans want. So it's not going to be surprising if MacFarlane and NBC were to get the rights, essentially back to Star Trek, because NBC was the home for Star Trek Next Generation back in the day. So if they can get the rights to Star Trek, I think you'll see a much better, much more understood product. And that's going to upset some people who like the Kurtzman Star Trek, but the Kurtzman Star Trek is just a continuation of the, debatably, good or bad, depending on how you want to look at it, J.J. Abrams Star Trek. I personally enjoy some of it. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, yeah, it's bad. I liked the first movie. I loved the second movie. The third movie was okay. It has one of my favorite actresses in it. The chick who was the bladed runner in Kingsman. She's awesome.
Yeah,
love her.
Patella, yeah.
Yeah, love her and everything. The shows, like, I love the cast of Discovery. I love every single one of those actors. I just don't like I can't connect with the show. Like when they announced what's her name? Sophia Martin Green, is that her name?
Yeah, Sonequa.
Yeah, Sonequa Martin Green. Yeah. When they announced Sonequa Martin Green was going to be the new star of the show, I was really excited because I loved her in Walking Dead. She's gorgeous. You know me and pretty girls. I'll watch a thing or two for some pretty girls, man. I'll tell you what. That's the whole reason why I watched Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23, because I saw the pretty girls. I'm like, I don't know what this is, but pretty girls. Ends up being a really good show.
Yeah, the cast, and it's ironically because the venture that I've been presented with was going to kind of lean more towards that, because it's a very unique position to be in, because I am that guy who would not necessarily crap on the show, because the irony is I don't necessarily have the OG generation perspective, and I'm kind of coming into a full force with the shows, but I can also be objective enough to step back and see the flaws in the shows.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a weird middle ground to be in, but the one thing that's not debatable is the extreme level of talent and the cast that these people have amassed with these shows. Like Sonequa, Doug Jones, and Jesus, I forget her name, but the lady that played she was the mom in Crazy Rich Asians.
She's Chinese, right?
Yeah, she's
wasn't she in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well?
Michelle Yao.
Michelle Yao.
Yeah. Michelle Yao. Yeah.
Then you also had what's his name? Isaacs.
Yeah,
He was in the first,
yeah.
and you had Anson Mount.
I, yeah, Anson Mount played a great. Yeah, you could almost do a spinoff with him. I mean, like the cast that they have amassed with these shows is great. It's just some of the directions is interesting to say.
I think the problem, or maybe I should say the disconnect that people are having is the original shows
Yeah,
really brought a viable two-sided argument to a lot of conversations. And the one I went to when I wrote one of my first columns about it was when Tuvok and Neelix became what was his name? Tuvox. It was when they two characters got merged into one due to a transporter accident, and this Tuvox or Tuvlix character was a wholly his own entity, and he was its own character in its own essence. But the crew wanted to bring back both Tuvok and Neelix, and they realized that the only way they could do that is by basically ending this character's life by separating him. So it was an argument on what do you do? Do you stay with the new status quo, or do you revert back to the previous situation? Because neither of those people, Tuvok or Neelix, agreed to do this. So, who has to sacrifice something in the end? And in the end, they went with the
yeah,
Vulcan philosophy of the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. So, Nevox or Tvox or whatever his name was, I completely forget. He ended up getting re-separated to bring back Tuvok and Neelix, but that's a great conundrum to explore. Then there's others like there's this race, and this is all from Voyager. There's this race of individuals that were suffering from something called the phage, that where their organs and their skin were just falling apart, and it happens almost instantly at birth, and it's an affliction that comes at you throughout your entire life. And the problem is the only way to prevent the phage from killing you is by harvesting organs and skin. So while you think these people are villains, in actuality, they're just trying to survive. They didn't ask for this. They were born into it. And it becomes like a question on ethics. And I think that's when Star Trek is at best is with ethics. That's not to say that Discovery or Picard isn't going to explore the idea of ethics. What these shows have been doing that I think have kind of driven some fans off is they're doing more Star Warsians type of storylines, where they're focusing more on specific arcs than they are on specific ideologies. Like with Picard, it's about finding this daughter of Data, who's a cyborg, and now he has a cyborg daughter or synthetic daughter, and Picard has to find her and figure out how she came to be and where she's from. Okay, that's a cool plot, but it doesn't really seem like a Star Trek plot. So there's that what Star Trek is, what Star Trek should be conversation. And I think a lot of people, especially in the fandom, though, are not able to have this conversation, at least respectively, because, you nerds.
yeah.
So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's great we having this conversation because now this listening in, there may be some amount of nuance that I could pull out of certain aspects where they may have touched on certain things that may have not necessarily harkened back to the OG aspects of Star Trek, but have kind of brought up in their own show to kind of try to make it its own thing. Like you said, it's very hard for people to kind of see through whatever rose-colored glasses they have on because they'd rather be staunch on one side of an argument than actually, come in the middle and talk about the facts, both good and bad. So, but that's with everything across the board these days. I can't wait to see all these weekend reviews of Birds of Prey and what narrative decided to get framed around that. But yeah, I mean, like I said, the one thing you can't deny is the cast for these shows. I haven't checked out Picard yet, but just being able for them to get um, Professor X back in that capacity. Like you said, obviously he's getting older, clearly. But just to be able to get him back in that capacity and get a lot of that cast back, like isn't 7 of 9 supposed to be back as well?
Yeah, Jerry Ryan. I'm looking forward to that. Yes, sir. Oh, Jerry Ryan. I remember when she was brought in, they're like, that's too sexy. And Jerry Ryan's like, I'm going to be put in a catsuit. And yeah, she was. I think the best part, like for me, the reason why I think I gravitate with Voyager so much is like the first 2 or 3 seasons were really well done. I mean, everyone's going to have their own opinion on Voyager. I think Voyager is one of the better series. That's not to say to take anything away from all the other series. I think what they did with the first 2 seasons, though, was great because Voyager starts off as a show where Voyager, the ship, was sent into Bajor to essentially arrest a bunch of terrorists, the Maquis. What ends up happening is the Maquis ship that they subdue, and Voyager gets sent into the Delta Quadrant. It's so far away, it's a 75-year trip back from where they are to back to Federation space. And what ends up happening is most of the Voyager crew, or like half of the Voyager crew, dies upon arrival, and same with the Maquis ship. So they're like, we need to integrate the 2 ship crews into one. Otherwise, no one here is going to get out of here alive. So a lot of the ship, it ends up having to become this hodgepodge collection of half Starfleet, half terrorists. And Janeway, the captain of the Voyager, makes the decision to make the captain of the Maquis ship, Chakotay, her number 1. And it's such a amazing, fresh approach. I love the way they did it. It's such a great show. It's so good. But it's really hard to say that it's, any show. Like, there's going to be a show that I think everyone can enjoy in the Star Trek lore, and I think that's part of the appeal of it. I hope that's still the case for Picard and Discovery, but we'll see as time goes by, because Discovery does not have a lot of fanfare anymore, and Picard is running off of the idea of nostalgia. So we'll see if that ends up holding up throughout the long term.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. Now, just hearing that particular bit, that sets up drama for an entire season. That concept.
Oh, yeah. And it does. Oh, it does.
Because now you got the captain with the nod of the Voyager looking like, what the freak are you doing? You gonna put a terrorist? Like what type of stuff is that? So now there's distrust there. Like, there's a lot of drama. There's a lot of meat to be picked off that bone if you have writers talented enough to kind of lull that out and don't want to get everything handled and everybody's on some kumbaya stuff within 4 episodes.
That's literally what they do, Marcus. Like, B'Elanna Torres is one of the Maquis, and throughout the first season, she's making a case to be the chief of engineering. And eventually she gets it, but when she gets it, there's distrust because she's a member of the terrorist Maquis. So the Starfleet officers serving underneath her are like, we don't trust her, we won't work for her. And that's like 10, 12 episodes into the season. So like, there's a lot of depth in Voyager from that one angle alone. It's really fantastic. Oh, did you ever see the Men in Black cartoon back in the day?
Yeah, I did.
Do you remember the blonde chick? I think it was Agent M.
Yeah.
She, the voice actress that did the voice of the main character, like one of the main characters in that Men in Black cartoon, she's on Star Trek Voyager for the first 3 seasons. Her name is Kess, if I remember correctly. So she's kind of like a little like, you'll probably recognize her, at least her voice. And the thing with Kess is she's a race of aliens that only live to be about 12 or 13 years old. And she's like 2 when you meet her, and it's like, oh, okay. So it's going to be one of them shows. Some funny shit, man. It's good shit. I love it. It's a great show. All right. Any final news, notes, opinions, points of controversy, or public opinion you want to touch on before we head off tonight?
No, I think we pretty much covered everything. Nothing, like you said, nothing came through the wire. Me and Chad will be looking forward to, I guess, catching this dubbed episode of My Hero Saturday.
Can't believe I have to wait a week, but whatever.
Yeah, but that's about it.
So XFL is this weekend. Be sure to check out. It's gonna be football. That's all I can say about it. Marks and I will be back on Sunday for our weekly edition of the Wrestling Underground. It'll be a fun show. Tune in. Tomorrow we're reviewing some season 2 of Chuck. I thought today was Friday. Saturday reviewing some game like Wolf of something or other for the SNES. Wolf Attack or some shit like that. Of course I get the hiccups now. Why me? Why is it always me? So be sure to check out realnerdcorp.com, RealNerdCorp.com, and Twitter, NERDCRP, and Instagram, RealNerdCorp, to follow along to find out when our shows are going up, what our shows are going to be about, and all that good stuff. Tomorrow, I think we're going to go 9-ish, maybe. Just check Twitter. Just subscribe to us on Twitch, and you'll find out. Twitch.tv/ComicCorp. That's Friday night, 9-ish, maybe 10-ish, maybe 11-ish, maybe 12-ish. Well, I don't know. I think it's going to be like 9-ish, though. Marcus can be found on Twitter at ParadoxKid, ParadoxKid.
That's the kid.
There he is. You can also find him on his occasional podcast at The True Penny Show, at True Penny Show on Twitter, at TruePennyShow. You can find me on Twitter at ChadNerdCorp, ChadNerdCorp, as well as on Instagram at Chad's Photo Hut. And be sure to follow along with all of our junk at Podbean at realnerdcorp.podbean.com, or by downloading the Podbean app today and searching Real Nerd Corp on the app device. Mobile device. That's what I meant to say. We're also on YouTube at youtube.com/WrestlingUnderground and youtube.com. Google search, YouTube search, Comic and GameCorp, because we don't have URL yet. So yeah, that'll be about it. And we'll see you guys tomorrow for another edition of the Ohio Guys Productions presents Chuck's First the Podcast. With all that being said, Marcus, why don't you take us home?
Good night, me.